Pucks with Haggs is brought to you by Prizepicks and the Gametime app.
Welcome to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe it's the 162nd episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, so thank you very much for listening and tuning in, as always. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. Get all of my Bruins and NHL writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns 3 times a week. That's thrice weekly for the Boston Sports Journal. So check out bostonsportsjournal.com. Get a membership there to read my stuff there, as well as participate in the Q&As I do every single week with the loyal readers. With me today, I have longtime friends and colleagues Mick Colageo and Mark Divver, New England Hockey Journal for Mark Divver, among other things, right, Mark? You have a website as well?
Yes, Rinkside, Rhode Island, where I chronicle the Providence Bruins ups and downs.
It is really the best place to find out what's going on with the Providence Bruins. So if you have not checked that out, definitely do check that out. And Mick Colageo, Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Yeah, my Rink Wrap blog, I link to on X and Facebook, and I'm in the big issues of the hockey news with the Bruins article. Next one up that just got filed, Future Watch prospects.
Yeah, make sure you check out the Future Watch. I'm sure it's salivating with prospects from the Boston Bruins in the Future Watch. As all the Bruins fans out there will be quick to tell us all. Before we get into all of that, and we're going to get into the loss to the Winnipeg Jets, where the Bruins are right now. Kind of a bad night for the Bruins. The Senators and the Lightning both won. The Bruins lost badly to the Winnipeg Jets, so it was one of those very down nights, and what's probably going to be a very up and down rest of the regular season for the Boston Bruins. But before we get to that, let's thank our sponsors real quick. Prizepicks. Download the Prizepicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prizepicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks, run your game. Let's also thank our friends at Gametime. And if you're looking for any kind of tickets, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it, Mick?
Game time.
Game time. That's right. All right. Let's get into it. Pull off the scab. 6-2 loss to the Winnipeg Jets. Kind of agree with Joe Sacco as to what he said after the game last night. They played pretty decent hockey, okay hockey, perfectly good hockey against a good team for the first 41 minutes or so of that game. But as we've seen a lot with this team, it's more so on the road than at home, but now it's crept into them at home as well. They just fell apart in the third period. A mistake or two, and that was all she wrote. They couldn't push back. They couldn't resist it. They couldn't stop the downward tide, which they have had a hard time doing in game. Like, they've had decent responses at times to losses the next game, but in game, it seems like they really cannot respond to adversity the way they need to and the way they should. And I, that's maybe they can improve that over the course of the season. I don't know. I have not seen any improvement as far as that goes over the course of the season in game. And maybe they still have time to sort of figure that out or try to get better at that. But I think there's a degree of, mental toughness that comes along with that, competitiveness, just unwillingness to bend or break, that it feels like some players on this team and this group as a whole has a hard time with in game. Last night, it was Mason Lowry, among others. They were down 3-2. They let up a goal right after they scored the shorthanded goal to tie the game. And then Mason Lowry makes a play in the third period where he tries to go cut around from behind the net right to the front, jumps right into Nikolai Ehlers waiting for him in the front of the net, and he just pops it into the goal. Looked like Korpisalo was not expecting Lowry to do that. I think time and place-wise and just management game-wise, that was just a poor decision situationally. And Joe Sacco hasn't done a lot of criticism, individual criticism of players, but he was critical of Lowry after the game last night. And I think, to a degree, this is also what's going to happen when you play young players in the lineup in key spots. You're going to have growing pains and you're going to have issues like this and things that pop up and are learning experiences for them. Mark, your thoughts on last night's game, the Lowry mistake, and just sort of where the Bruins are based on the last couple of games that they've played, and also just, where they are in the standings. They're now on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs go.
Well, I'll start with the Lowry mistake. Some years ago, when Jake Wallman was playing for Providence College, I saw him do that exact same thing. And a guy poked his stick, didn't even touch the puck, just poked his stick, the shaft of his stick, and into the net it went. The funny thing, and the reason why I remember it so vividly, is that on the next shift, Jake Wallman did exactly the same thing. cut through the crease, and if there had been an opposing player there, it might have happened a second time.
A natural hat trick.
So what I'm getting at here is that with players, of that ilk, the skilled offensive puck carrying guys like Wallman is, and like Lowry hopefully will be, you got to live with some of that.
Yep.
The thing with Lowry that a bigger concern for me is his continued lapses in defending and things like that. But that's as you said, and others have pointed out, if you're gonna ride young players, talented young players, you gotta live with it. You gotta live with it. It was a bad play at a bad time, but on to the next one. As to the mental toughness part, geez, I don't know. I don't think anyone would say that the captain is not mentally tough. I think he's leading the way here. I think he's all about mental toughness, it seems to me. But who else? Who else is there that can kind of mirror that and contribute themselves to that? Is Charlie Coyle that guy? I don't know. You'd like to think he is, the style of play that he plays and all of that, but I don't know. Who else? I don't know.
How about the other guys with letters on their sweaters?
Yeah, exactly. I don't. That's a mystery that I couldn't begin to come up with an answer for that one. Is the mix just wrong? What is it? What is going on with that? And how do you fix it? I don't think that's something you can just say, well, we're going to do this differently, and that solves itself. It speaks to, I think, something bigger. So I don't know what. I don't have an answer for that one. As for where they are, I feel like in a way they have been showing management who they are over these last few weeks, these up and down performances.
Yep.
And that's knowledge that Don Sweeney and company need to have going into the trade deadline. That moves have to be made, and there's got to be an improvement. I continue to harp on this for a good part of the season, but the difference in talent and skill level between some of these teams like Winnipeg and Colorado, who they beat, the difference between what Boston has and what they have is just, it couldn't be more, the gap couldn't be much wider. And that's the challenge for Don Sweeney and the Bruins management, is trying to narrow that gap by acquiring some talent, some more talent, whether it's through the draft, trades, whatever, free agency. Although the last two free agents, the two big free agents, that's been a disaster. That's all there is to it. So a lot of questions. I don't have a lot of answers right now.
No, and you do hope though that management is clear-eyed evaluating what they're seeing right now and making according decisions based on what they're seeing. As far as the trade deadline goes, and trying to improve the team, and just like really taking a hard look at some of the flaws on this team and some of the things that just don't seem to be going right. One interesting thing and somebody pointed this out to me, I did not notice it last night. I did not notice it when it was happening, but they said to me that during one of those power plays that the Bruins had, the players were all sort of gathering together to, go over strategy or talk about what they were going to do. And Pasternak was just skating around in circles doing his own thing while the other 4 guys were talking about what was going on and what was going to happen. And Marchand was trying to get him to go over there to talk with the rest of them, and he was just doing his own thing. I didn't see it with my own eyes. Somebody pointed it out to me, and somebody that I trust said they saw it, and it was very noticeable, and a few people saw it, and they were talking about it. So, that's something to consider, something to put in the mix, something to think about, just based on everything that we've heard and seen this season. But it's also hard to it's hard to fault a guy that's been carrying the Bruins offensively for the better part of a month right now, and has been the best thing going for them. And that line has been clearly a dominant top line, even if they haven't gotten great results the last couple of games. But just to your point, Mark, of maybe the mix isn't right, maybe something needs to change, maybe there are things at play here that that need to be considered. Mick, your thoughts just on what we saw last night, where the Bruins are right now, and just a very good, bad, terrible, no good evening for the Boston Bruins, where they lost, and both Ottawa and Tampa are now starting to get some separation and have games in hand on the Bruins.
2 dumb penalties by Brad Marchand, one at the beginning of the game.
All right. I would disagree. I think those were soft penalties, especially the first one. The second one might have been kind of a dumb, aggressive.
All right, you tell me, what is Marchand trying to accomplish by putting his hands and stick to the back of DeMello at the precise moment that he goes into that vulnerable stage where you turn into a stop as you go to the boards for a puck?
I mean,
now,
he didn't
he sell it? Did he sell it? Of course he did. But
there was no arm extension whatsoever on that play. He did not extend and throw.
It was a love tap.
DeMello went down super easy.
It was a love tap, to be sure.
Yeah.
But the decision to do it, he knows who it is. DeMello knows who's behind him.
Yep.
He knows he's about to go into a stop, and he feels the stick. He feels it against him. He knows at that vulnerable, precise moment. To me, it was a gamesmanship thing. I'm not suggesting that he was trying to hurt him.
Right.
But he wanted to disrupt him by saying, hey, guess who's behind you? 63. Feel that right now at this precise moment? And DeMello's, yeah, you see this? And he goes down, and he winds up putting Marchand in the box. And they called it. And to me, DeMello won that one. And later on, I felt like he took another bad one. And so I didn't feel like, he's trying to impact the game. Marchand is desperately trying to impact the game for the Bruins. Yep. I feel like his offensive zone entries have been all out. I feel like he's done everything he could. I feel like a lot of the individual, I'm going to try to beat 3 guys here just because I'm feeling my way into things, and I feel like I got it tonight. That I don't see that anymore in his game. What I see now is him trying to do everything possible to help them win. Last night, I felt like that one. He's a gamble. He lost. I felt like he did another one later. He lost. And so now Lindholm, late second period, Hellebuck's down, puck's on his forehand. I know it happens fast. But, hey, you're a skilled guy. You could back off, maybe try to roof it. No, drop pass to no one. I don't know if somebody called for the puck or what. Yeah. But I remember I could not get Matt out of my head for that entire intermission. And then he goes and pops in a goal. It was a beautiful shot, similar in terms of the precision with which different kind of shot, but precision like he released in New York to beat Shesterkin, a quickie that night. But it was a great, great shot. And he scores. And now you're saying, wow, he came back from that. And now the Bruins have momentum after this penalty kill. And it's the third, and this is a great spot for them. So my takeaway from last night is that they had this awesome opportunity to seize momentum in that game on home ice. And they weren't up to it.
No.
As soon as Winnipeg pushes back, the Bruins folded like a house of cards. And this has been their identity. They bend and then they break. And I've never seen a team that does this as frequently as they do make the playoffs. And since they have to be better than their competition because of the games in hand, and with all the road hockey they're going to have to play when this stretch is over and to get on the other side of Four Nations. One little addendum to the story about Wallman. My deja vu, and I'll keep this brief, was Game 4 of the 1995 Bruins Devils series. The Bruins had gotten schooled in Games 1 and 2 of that series. They go down to the Meadowlands and eke out Game 3. Now you get Game 4 going to overtime, and the Bruins, if they get the next goal, they go home 2-2 against the 95 Devils. Rookie defenseman John Roloff behind the net, curls out in front of Blaine Locker. Randy McKay is there, pokes his stick. Puck goes in under Locker. Meadowlands erupts. Bruins never look back. They lose the next game. And, of course, Chris Ford and Brian Sutter were shown the door the same day. The heads went rolling onto Causeway. And, there was a famously day that the Bruins and the Celtics both made coaching changes, and I'm sure there was no consultation. But they did it the same morning. There
was no Patriots parade for a Super Bowl that day, was there?
No. And the other thing I'll throw out there too is I've seen Bobby Orr do this in Toronto, and I don't even know if he might have just gotten tangled up with Cheevers or Johnson. I can't remember who was in net, but it wasn't. I don't know if there was a forechecker in that case, but he did the same thing, and happens to the best of them, literally.
No. I mean, it is definitely, to Mark's point, it is definitely part of like a playmaking, puck moving, offensive minded defenseman's game. Like he's going to use that middle of the ice because sometimes it's all that's available for him to make a play and get it up the ice quick. And it's high risk, obviously. But like the part of the equation that's lacking right now, I feel like, is just game management or like time and place and situational. Like, there's certain points where that just can't be in your tool bag in games. Like, I think that was a time and place where he just couldn't do that. He's got to make the safe play along the boards and get it up the ice and try to get it out of the zone rather than, trying to make chicken salad out of chicken, what.
Best player I've ever seen, did the same thing. Yep. And then Johnny Roloff, who was about as much NHL career as Lowry did.
But Mason Lowry's
did the same thing in a huge
That's
moment.
Mason Lowry's not Bobby Orr. Mason Lowry's a guy that hopes to be in the NHL and stay there. So he's got to figure out that there's certain times you can make that play in a game and there's certain times you cannot try to make that play in the game.
Well, from this management standpoint is how I'm looking at this. You're deciding that you're rolling this guy out here. This is what you're going to live with.
Yeah, no, totally.
And if this team, that to me, that's a footnote of a compromise to trying to win, is inexperience on defense.
Yep.
If you're trying to say if our goal is to win, our goal is to make the playoffs, then he shouldn't be in there. Osterley should.
Yeah, no, but my point is he needs to learn from that situation, which I'm sure he will. He's a smart kid.
Yeah, career-wise, from the career prism, yep, absolutely agree. Yeah. I'm just saying if we're talking about the scope of the Bruins season and what their goal is, if you say we're trying to make the playoffs, then your answer is experience on defense. That's one of the oldest equations in the history of this game. Yep.
No, and it's the same thing with Matt Patra. Like it's both of those players are being put in fairly significant roles right now in the second half of an NHL season where the intensity goes up, where like veterans are going to pounce on rookie mistakes, where they're definitely going to have ups and downs and things going wrong that they're going to learn from and eventually be better players for it. But the Bruins are going to have to, deal with the growing pains and deal with, the mistakes that are going to lead to lost points and lost games. And, this is sort of the I think, overall frustrating part of what the Bruins are dealing with right now. And I'm going to get to that in a second. We're going to take a break, though, in the podcast to talk about Prizepicks. Prizepicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun, and it's super simple. The big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prizepicks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Prizepicks is also giving away a free pick for the big game where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you win real cash. Prizepicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prizepicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Check out the promos tab to tail any of our Super Sweat Millie winners' big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prizepicks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Think Jalen Hurts will get more than 250 passing yards? Will Patrick Mahomes pass for more than 1.5 touchdowns? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your games on Prizepicks. Download the Prizepicks app and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prizepicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks, run your game. All right, let's jump back into the podcast. Frustration was very clear last night in the Bruins dressing room after that game was over, understandably so. This was from Brad Marchand. We're just making mistakes, and it seems like every mistake we make is costing us. It's been a different year. We're obviously facing a lot of adversity as a group this year. We don't have a choice but to work through it. You can't get caught up in frustration. Obviously, none of us are happy with where we are at and the position we're in, especially considering where we expected to be at the start of the year, but you can't focus on that. You have to focus on being better for the next one, and that's what we have to worry about. Are we happy with where we're at? Absolutely not. We haven't played to our standard, and we haven't played the way we know we are capable of as a group. That is frustrating. But at the end of the day, we worry about what we can control, and that is our effort tomorrow in preparing for the game on Saturday. Mark, just in light of Mick talking about the penalties that he took, clearly trying to make something happen, how high do you think the frustration level is for Brad Marchand as the captain of this team, with an expectation that's a lot higher than this? And, frankly, I think is not used to what he's seeing at any point in his NHL career and has to be kind of wondering, what is going on.
Well, yeah, the frustration has to be, almost, I don't know how close it is to the boiling point. I'll put it that way. But, it's got to be just incredibly difficult for him to be, leading, the leader of this edition of the Bruins and have them, in a lot of ways, going against some of the things that the franchises stood for, toughness, and whether it be mental or physical. I think the physical part is fine, but the mental part, as we've talked about, is not. So, you hope it doesn't boil over for him, because we've seen what happens when he kind of goes when the lid kind of blows off. You hope nothing like that happens, but who knows? The penalties and kind of the up and downs for Marchand. It's always been, since he got here, you got to take the good. If you love the good, but the bad that comes along with it, you got to live with it. And
yep.
I think he's. I'm not in the penalties. Yeah, the first one especially was. I mean, the second one I thought was especially egregious. But you got to kind of live with him. The ups and the downs of his game. I think he's evened it out in recent years to the benefit of the Bruins. But you hope that the frustration can be kind of reined in and channeled in the right way for him.
Yeah. I mean, the second one I think was a little more sort of unnecessary, but I also think the first one I just thought was soft, bad call from the ref. I was disappointed that got called a penalty. I just didn't think it was a penalty. The ref should know better.
Did Wes McCauley make that call? Was that him?
It might have been.
Did he want
I'd have to look.
Did he want to get some camera time early in the game? Is that what was going on there?
Yeah, he was mad that he wasn't going to be able to do his 5 for fighting thing during the game, so he clearly decided to insert himself. But the second one, I think it was unnecessary, but I think it was him trying to make something happen. He sees the goalie playing the puck or getting to a puck behind the net. thinks maybe he can get there and like disrupt everything and maybe create a scoring play. Like I get what he was doing, but it was a high risk play where like the chances of something good coming out of that were not great, but he was giving it a shot anyway. And I'm not going to fault him in that instance, because I think he's just trying to make something happen. He's being aggressive rather than sitting back and sort of letting things happen, which I think is always the better choice, especially when your team is struggling. Mick, your gauge on just the frustration level of this team right now, and sort of, when you look at it right now, 4 games left until the 4 Nations break, right? And they're playing good teams: Minnesota, Vegas, and the Rangers twice, home and away.
We're back.
This could really be, at the end of these 4 games going into the break, depending on how they do, this could really be sort of a defining moment for the season and what they end up deciding to do.
I'm not optimistic.
Yeah.
In fact, I wasn't optimistic approaching this group of games because I feel like how do you go into Buffalo and perform like you did? And I mean, that team's been a tomato can most of the year.
Yep.
And the Bruins went in there and left another stinker on the floor. And it's like, how many times does I mean, Ty Anderson's been doing this. People are throwing the stats out there now, trying to look in the history annals. And when you get comparative seasons, they miss the playoffs every time in those comparative seasons.
Yep.
So, and then, this has been rolling in my head as it's accumulated during the year. You're like saying, wait a second, this looks like a duck. It walks like a duck. It's a duck. And I don't know the answer, but I do feel the same lack of optimism about these games. There's nothing there in the weeds that tells me that, they can turn this thing around. I feel like every game for them is like disarming a bomb. They have to do everything absolutely right, and if they cut the wrong wire once, the whole thing blows up in their face, and it's over. And that's been the story of their season. So what is there in their body of work right now that tells me that somehow, some way, something is going to let them down? Whether it's their penalty kill, which has been pretty stable for weeks now, the PK, the power play, goaltending, a youthful mistake on D, or Zadorov's chasing a play up to center ice. Who knows what it's going to be, or offense flatlining. There's got to be a forecheck. This team was sold to us preseason as a team that's going to have speed on the forecheck, pressure. That's what we're going to do. We've seen it in spurts. They've played an occasional great game against a good team. Most of those were in the rearview mirror now for months. I'm looking at these opponents and saying, okay, what are we gonna get here? It's good opponents at home. It's anybody on the road. I'm pretty punched out. I don't. There's nothing here that tells me that they're going to turn this whole thing around. I'd love to be sitting from here, across from you, a week from now.
Yep.
And tell you, boy, was I wrong. It's not a prediction as much as it is an expectation. I'm conditioned right now to expect that this boat will continue to spring leaks.
I think it will, but I think we also sometimes overreact a little bit to the leaks. Especially the fans more than anybody. You hear them saying, trade everybody, fire everybody, like after a bad loss, like last night or after the one in Buffalo. But I will say, like, this team does, like, not in game, there's not responses, but like they seem to still be able to sort of respond and circle the wagons when things are going bad and keep that death blow from coming that would really like spiral them completely out of the playoffs. So like they've shown enough to be able to do that, where I almost half expect that they're going to win like 3 or 4 here going into the break and stay on, life support for the playoffs and sort of keep keep that, the flicker alive where management's not going to like pull anything knee jerk or pull anything preemptive while the Four Nations break is going on. I feel like that's what this team's identity has been, is kind of like they will lose some bad games. They will, make you think that they're going to go into a complete downward spiral and just like circle the drain and go out. And then they pull out of it for a few games. And it's sort of been this like back and forth, this very like,
I think I'm with you on that, Joe. I don't really disagree with that. I just feel like the quality of the opponent and then the number of road games that are on the other side of Four Nations.
Yep.
That would be the thing that changes
but
the
three
equation.
Of 4 of the games
not them giving up.
3 of 4 of the games are at home, and they've played very well even against good playoff teams at home. Like I feel like we're setting up here for them to have another one of those like mini stretches where you're like, all right, like they're at least trying to stay in it, and they can sort of straighten up and fly right when they need to. Mark, your sense of what we're going to see over these next difficult 4 games going into the Four Nations break?
Well, I would point to the game against Colorado, less than a week ago now.
Yep.
How were they able to dig in the third period and win that game?
Yep.
And then days later, lay an egg in Buffalo, and then again last night.
Yep.
How does that happen? The consistency is just not there. I couldn't believe that they won that game against the Avalanche. I really couldn't.
I couldn't either. Especially the way the first 40 minutes had gone, because it looked like they were struggling to keep pace with the Avs, and the Avs were flying around all over the place.
Yeah, they didn't touch the puck for the first 2 periods, and then all of a sudden, they rev it up in the third. So I think it probably will. There'll be a handful of those, and then there'll be more of what we saw in Buffalo and last night going forward. In these next few games, I mean, this could get ugly or not. Who can say at this point with the way this team is fluctuated?
Yeah, you need Biff's Future Sports Almanac from Back to the Future to be able to decide what's going to happen in these games, because it's unpredictable. Like, this team, if nothing else, is wildly unpredictable, and you could feel the exasperation. That quote I read from Brad Marchand last night when I asked him the question about that, like just kind of how frustrating the season had been as a whole. You can tell that he's having a hard time with everything that's going on, and understandably so, because it's like you cannot read this team and how they're going to come out game to game. It's really difficult to predict.
And I wonder, I wonder what guys like Brad and the other leaders of this team are saying to their teammates behind closed doors. I don't expect we'll see that on Behind the B, but I bet there's been some interesting stuff said, and I'm curious as to what it might be. Yeah,
and I wonder if we'll ever find out. That's a good point. All right, let's take a pause real quick to also talk about our friends at Gametime. If you need tickets, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime for obviously your Bruins tickets, but also if you're looking for tickets to the Celtics or maybe even comedy or concert tickets as well. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The game of the week for this week that would make an outstanding post-holiday buy is the Saturday, February 1st showdown between the Bruins and the Rangers at the Garden. A original 6 showdown between the Bruins and the Blue Shirts, Boston versus New York. Who doesn't love that? The amazing deal is $144 for corner balcony section 304 seats, which is pretty great value for Bruins tickets in this new year. Great features at Gametime, priority Gametime picks. Curation makes it easier to save even more on sports, comedy, theater, etc. All in pricing, you toggle this feature and shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. What is better than 110% of the difference? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it, Mick?
Game time. And let me just say something here.
Yes.
Recent somebody I know had recent experience with another wildly popular secondary market that wound up tacking on to seats that were listed at $199. Then when they went to checkout, each seat was tacked on $41.
Yep. Yeah, like the price like
so I love the game time toggle option to get the all-in price that you can see it both ways and know exactly what's going on. I think that's terrific.
See that? That is why we go with Mick for the game time call during the read of the ad, because he believes in game time. He is a believer. Not only is he the president, he's also a client at Game Time. Mick Colageo. All right, let's get to our email of the week, and then we're going to get a little Providence update from Mark. This is from Roger Perry. Hi, Joe. I like the analysis you and your guests have done about the Bruins' recent long-term contract signings. Do you think the mixed results so far for Swayman, Zadorov, and Lindholm will mean the Bruins become hesitant to offer any more long-term or no-movement offers to players that haven't come up through the system and already proven themselves? Thanks. Love the podcast, Roger Perry. Mark, is there going to be some hesitation, you think, with big spending contracts for the Bruins and no-move clauses based on the situation that they're in right now?
Geez, I hope not, because I mean, the only way you get some of these, free agents is by giving them a lot of term and a lot of money.
Yep.
What they got to do
the no-move clauses.
What they got to do, yeah, and everyone gets no trades now.
Yep.
What they got to do is, use better judgment in who you pick. I mean, last summer those were two of the big name guys. They went out and got them, and now it hasn't worked out well at all so far. But geez, I don't think you can just kind of take a step back and not pursue that strategy in the future, or else you're just not going to get those guys.
Yeah, I agree. And in reading the comments out of Vancouver, it's interesting. I just saw this this morning. It sounded like the Canucks really wanted Zadorov back, and they were like shocked or surprised that he left and signed with Boston. So like that's a player that the Bruins got away from another team that wanted to retain him and keep him. People talk about Zadorov being well-traveled. He's played for a few teams. Well, like Vancouver really wanted to keep him. And I still think like you see so many of the things that he does and sort of the tools that he has, and you say, like, when he puts it together, or if he could just like get rid of sort of the brain cramp that he has occasionally, like he'd be a phenomenal defenseman. Like all of the tools and the physical gifts are there for him to be like really a difference maker. It just hasn't happened consistently this year because of the decision making. But like, I still want to see what he looks like in the playoffs too, if they can get there, because I think he could be a monster in the playoffs and be a difference maker. Mick, do you think the way things have played out with some of the long-term contracts will cause the Bruins to be skittish about that in the future?
I don't think it'll cause management to be skittish, because I think Don Sweeney's track record until this past off season has been really good. I mean, Rick Nash, I disagreed with it. I wanted to see McDonough instead as a bridge between Chara and McAvoy.
Yeah.
And I felt like letting him come in the division allowed Tampa to complete its big three, which was disastrous for the Bruins. Well, that said, Nash didn't work out because he got hurt. So that's not fair to call that a loss. Sweeney's been excellent, and the pro scouts have been excellent. They've gotten ahead of players that have elevated. Pavel Zacha, Morgan Geekie. They've gotten some of the most important players this year. Good, most consistent, solid contributors are guys that they got, that they did by scouring the league for guys that they felt like weren't achieving, that they could elevate. So to me, the question is, I don't see Charlie Jacobs being knee-jerk about this and saying, I don't like the last two acquisitions. You're not doing any more of that stuff. Well, then what do you got? What are you doing here? You might as well change out the whole management if you can't let them do their job. That having been said, the Bruins have kind of done everything they can do. Here, from this point forward, from a mechanical standpoint, it's got to be fine-tuning, patience, and who knows, maybe Lindholm's a much better player for the Bruins next year when his life has quieted down from the whirlwind of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, or maybe the
playoffs. Playoffs. So, there's. I just think that it may be. I'm not recommending this or suggesting that this is what they'll do, but I think it's quite possible that they weren't wrong about last year's team, and that these 2 acquisitions, given a year to really settle in, and without all the asterisks of Swayman's holdout, of Marchand's surgeries, of everybody else who came to camp, McAvoy, Coyle, that were off their game for whatever reason.
A coach
he
firing
was lousy early year.
Yeah.
Wow, and then the coach thing that happened.
Yep.
That you actually get a fresh start with this group. They might have been right, and we may never find out if they start tearing it up. So, can you sit still like this? Well, the court of public opinion would light TD Garden on fire if that happened. But this is. But I'm looking at this like if they're unable to do stuff, that's not going to bother me a whole lot, because I have a feeling that this is a lot better team than what this season has presented.
Yeah, could be. The cacophony of boos at the end of last night's game against Winnipeg was unmistakable. Bruins fans were definitely pissed in letting it be known. And that's happened a few times this year at home. Not a ton, because they played pretty good hockey for the most part at home, but there's been a few stinkers in there, and last night was definitely one of them. And I would say, Mick, counterpoint, Don Sweeney also signed David Backes to a long-term big money deal, also signed Matt Bolesky to a bad deal. What was the defenseman's name? I can't even remember him, that they signed to a 5-year contract, who completely washed out. It wasn't huge money, but it was definitely long-term.
Oh, I know who you mean. Yeah. Left side.
I can't even remember
left side
his
defenseman.
name.
He wound up getting buried in Providence.
Yeah, that's how forgettable.
I think they were looking at him as kind of like their left side Andrew Peak at the time.
Yeah.
And so that didn't work out either.
So I would say, diamond in the rough, you're right, and they've done a good job of reading players with higher upside and finding those guys and identifying those guys.
Right, and he took another swing at Backes, and that name is Charlie Coyle.
The bigger ticket guys, they have missed on some of those. So it's not like an outstanding record of work. I'd say it's good, more hits than misses, but there have been some significant misses in there. Mark,
early on.
Providence Bruins, what is going on with the P Bruins? Who's playing well, who's not? What's the vibe down there right now?
Well, the team is playing remarkably well, considering that, Mike Callahan is up top, Vinny Lettieri is up top, Max Jones, not so much Max Jones. I don't think he's particularly missed, but without those important guys, they keep winning. I think it's a tribute to the coaching staff. They do a tremendous job, just a tremendous job with game planning and preparing the players to be ready to go on the weekend. Still waiting for Georgi Merkulov continues to put up numbers and play very, very well. Continue to wait for, is he going to get a look? I mean, they got to give him a look at some point.
Yeah.
And Fabian Lysell in the same as well. No, he has good games. He has bad games. He had some stretches last weekend where, just the same mistakes that a first year guy right out of junior makes. He's making in year 3, But,
may I interject briefly?
But having said that, you got to get him up here, get him up there, and see what happens. See what he looks like. The old thing, old time hockey guys often say is, he needs to play. He'll look better playing with better players. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Will it work in his case? Well, hey, let's find out. What do you got to lose?
If that happens, I feel like that's the white flag on the season. Rather than a desperate move, because I don't think the belief is there by them for the desperate move. But I was going to interject that in my discussion with Coach Mouginel about prospects, one of the things he said is that he's gotten very good at knowing when a player has played his way out of the American League and he doesn't belong there anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why he kept telling Bruins management, Callahan's ready. He's ready. He's ready.
The same
because
thing
he was
happened.
playing an NHL game in the AHL. And when you watch this guy play, he's really good.
The same thing happened with Justin Brazeau. Mooj kept telling them. And, the guys up top were like, well, he's big. He's not exactly burning around the ice like Johnny Beecher. Can he really do it?
Yeah.
And they give him a chance, and I'll be damned, he can do it. He's not a top line player by any means, but he's a serviceable guy in the lineup at this point, or not in the lineup, as the case may be.
Yeah.
But the way Providence has been able to, they're in second place. They had an awful start to the season. But they keep winning, and it's the other day they got 2 goals from the fourth line. Guys who rarely score all of a sudden chip in with 2. Riley Duran was one of them. So they're doing a great job from a coaching standpoint of preparing.
And Bussy's been better, right?
Who?
Bussy
has
been better.
Been excellent the last 2 games. Yeah. And DiPietro's been excellent all season. So, they're, as I said, they're in second place at this point. They're not going to catch Hershey. No one's going to catch Hershey, although Hershey lost 9-0 the other day. Providence is just they're right there and near the top of the standings. They've been very good lately with some of these guys just missing from the lineups, the Callahans, the Letteris. And guys like that. I'll be curious to see, if and when they get some of these guys back.
Hey, quick question, Regula. What's his story?
Well, that's a good question. Edmonton took him on waivers. He's Edmonton's guy now.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
But the funny thing is, he hasn't played a game. He hasn't been cleared to play. Okay.
Really?
When did the NHL start allowing injured players to get moved?
That's my question. Question. How is it that they can take him and just stash him? I don't know what his status is, but he hasn't played a game. I think he's with the team, at least at home. So that's a guy that Providence was counting on to be, arguably their number 1 defenseman. And he hasn't played a game yet. He's been, grabbed by another team. So I don't know what's going on there.
That's it. I saw that when he was claimed on waivers. I didn't know that he hadn't played a game for them. And
he was rehabbing in Providence.
I'm not making this up. I'm starting to remember all this now.
He was rehabbing in Providence, but they didn't think, he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. And for a guy who not a great skater to begin with, okay? Not a great skater. To come off a serious ankle injury a year ago and then a knee injury during the summer.
Wow.
I mean, what was he going to look like? And what was he going to look like, say, and put him in the lineup with the likes of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl zooming around? If you thought...
gap up.
If you thought Regula was a little bit on the slow side before, what's he going to look like with those guys?
2-zone gap.
So that's a mystery. What's going on there?
Anybody outside of Merkulov and Lysell, like play wise, worth mentioning, or somebody that's caught your eye, Mark, in Providence?
Riley Tufte's been very good.
Okay.
Riley Tufte's been very good. Maybe not physical in the way that they had hoped he would be. He's a huge guy, but he's not. And when he gets body position, he's effective because he can't knock him off the puck. But he's not zooming in on the forecheck and burying anyone. He's played well. Guy who's been very good, and I don't know where they'd be without him, is Tyler Pitlick. well, an older guy, 32, 33 years old,
Yep.
not on an NHL contract, probably not an NHL player at this point in his career, but boy, has he been good.
Yeah.
Night in and night out, he does. And the thing I particularly respect about guys like him and Lettieri is the attention to detail. The attention to detail. There was a play last night, and there have been other plays since Lettieri came to Boston where the puck came up his side of the ice. The D-man was on him, pinching, and he did whatever it took to get the puck out of the zone.
Yep.
Now, that's a thing, not to pile on Fabian Lysell here, but that's a play he does not make, like, say 50% of the time he gets that puck out, whereas Vinny Lettieri gets it out, 85% of the time.
Yeah, Patrick, like when you see that play developing, you kind of assume that Lettieri is going to get it out.
Yeah.
That's why you need these guys on your American Hockey League team, for guys like Lysell to watch and to say, for the coach to one hand on his shoulder and one hand pointing and saying, see what he's doing there. That you need to get good at that.
Yeah.
If you want to go to the next level, you got to make that part of you.
Patrick Brown's another one. Just a tremendous player day in and day out in Providence.
And would you put Magna from last year in that class?
Magna?
And from last year when they had Magna, he was kind of like that.
He was guys? Like that, yeah. A little more offense, but yeah. And I
got to have those guys down there.
You got to have them, and I hoped every year. I hope that they re-sign guys like Magna, guys like Connor Carrick, Magna, and I thought, Magna's father-in-law is Jim Craig, so I thought, hey, Jim Craig's here, at least in the summertime. Why wouldn't he, Magna re-sign with Boston and be around, be in the area? And I don't think they offered him a contract. And now he went back to Colorado, so he's out there. But I would have loved to see them keep him, but it didn't happen.
Interesting. All right, Mark, thank you very much for your perspective on Providence. Mick, thank you very much. Let's thank our sponsors real quick. Prizepicks. Download the Prizepicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prizepicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks, run your game. Let's also thank Gametime. If you need any kind of tickets, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it, Mick?
Game time.
Game time. Mark Divver, Mick Colageo, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody else out there, thank you for listening. We'll see you at the rink.